You see, today we are going to discuss one of the very important topics, that is the bibliometrics, which is the original name, and now the term has undergone a number of changes, like scientometrics, bibliometrics, and particularly when it is applied to a given subject, its expression also changes. If it is applied to economics, it becomes econometry. If it is applied to sociology, it becomes sociometry. If it is applied to library, it becomes librametrics. So, we are going to discuss the three things. One is bibliometrics. Second is the bibliometric laws. And third is the applications of bibliometric laws. First of all, something about the bibliometrics. What is bibliometry? Generally, when you analyze a word, you used to read bibliography, you used to analyze it, split it into biblio and graphy. When you are studying bibliometrics, you analyze it as bibliometrics. If you take out the meaning of bibliometrics, it will simply mean biblio refers to the book or the document, and metrics is some sort of measurement. So simply it will mean that the measurement of documents or books, this is just the word meaning, does not make any sense. You do not, measure the length or the breadth or the thickness of the document. Rather, what you measure is the property of information. The information which is contained in the document. And in bibliometrics, you study the properties and the behavior of information. Do you understand? So when we talk of bibliometrics, we will say that bibliometrics is that branch of knowledge, not the branch of library science. Bibliometrics is that branch of knowledge that studies what? Two things. One, properties or characteristics of information. Properties and then the behavior of information. This is the natural way of studying the things. Anything which you study, first of all, you study the properties of that particular thing. If you want to study a particular individual, first of all, you will study what are the properties of that individual. And second thing is that once equipped those properties, once naturally gifted with those properties, then what is the behavior of the individual you are going to study? You understand? For example, this duster. If you want to study what it is, first of all, you will study what are its properties, what are its functions, and when we use it, whether we are getting the same sort of behavior as it is expected of it, or something else. So here, bibliometrics is concerned with the study of the properties of information and also the behavior of information. Generally, word behavior is associated with any sort of living being. How human beings behave, how the animals behave, how a particular category of animals behave. That is a sort of behavior. But when it comes to the behavior of information, we will have to see what are those parameters in which we would like to study the behavior of information. That is one thing. And second thing is that what techniques we are going to apply to study the behavior of information. You understand my point? First, study of the properties and behavior of information. Second, how to study the behavior of information. Right? So here you will find that generally the studies of this nature are of two types. One is quantitative, and another is qualitative. You can well understand that the first one refers to the quantity and second one refers to the quality. With regard to the behavior of information, we generally apply the quantitative study, the techniques which will study what? Quantitative nature of information. Isn't it? How do you study the quantity? For example, you take out the percentage. Okay. Then there are other mathematical methods, average and all that. Similarly, there are some statistical methods which are applied to study the quantitative nature of information. So, for studying the quantitative nature of information, we have mathematical as well as statistical methods. Am I right? So you see, now we can define bibliometrics. What is bibliometrics? Bibliometrics is a study of the properties and behavior of information. Generally, it is a quantitative study conducted by applying mathematical and statistical methods. We are not going to give any standard definition. we will give the definition what we understand. So this much we understand by the term bibliometrics. Is that very clear to you or not? Yes. Okay. Now, this is one thing. But what sort of things we are going to study when we refer the behavior of information? For that, I would like to remind you that in the beginning, the librarianship was mostly confined to, let us say, classification, cataloging, and then the compilation of bibliography. These two techniques were there for the organization of knowledge in the library, and this technique was there to give extra service to the user, which you may call a part of documentation that came out to be called as documentation. You know that the first PhD which was awarded in library science in India was for compilation of a bibliography. Jagdish Chand Sharma from Chandigarh. Okay. Because it used to be so important that compilation of the bibliography, it was found good enough to be awarded a PhD degree. You see, because we are, in fact, going away from the core library practices, in consequence to the application of information technology. In consequence of application of information technology, we as librarians are forgetting some root practices, some basic practices which used to involve the librarians more in searching the information, in organizing the information. And bibliography compilation used to be that sort of study. Go to the seminar library of this department and you will find that probably up to 1995, all the dissertations of MLISC, they were confined to the compilation of bibliographies. Go and check, without any exception. This bibliometrics was introduced, fortunately or unfortunately, by me. And you know what happened, that in BHU, I was invited to examine the dissertations of the students. And I found that even those days, when IT was not like the IT which we have today, in form of Web of Science, Scopus or other databases, people used to collect the data manually, used to arrange them and rearrange them to find out different type of results. So that became sort of fascinating experience for me, and with the help of my colleague there, Professor Chen Prasad, I asked him to give me a copy of one dissertation. They had also started just, So it was not very accurate, but something was there. A bibliometric study was conducted by a student of BHU. Then we also started. And first of all, it was given to my students only. Okay. But slowly and gradually, this whole information is available. You can see that how many bibliometric studies were conducted by MLI students. That is also a sort of topic of research. Which year, how many bibliometric study? Which year, how many bibliometric? Then the graph is going up. Now total bibliometric study, except one. How many? How many of you are not doing bibliometric study this year? How many? Yes, still quite a few. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Actually, that is the point. It's not only bibliometrics. Bibliometrics is a form of study. But if you say that compilation of bibliography, that era has gone, it is no more useful, it's not, I don't endorse it. If you say that no survey should be conducted, that era has gone, I don't agree with you. Okay. So all multifarious type of studies should be conducted, and that is the stage where you learn all these techniques. Like she has taken up compilation of annotated bibliography in English literature. Which one is that?
It's a citation analysis of Department of Physics.
Right. English, last year somebody had taken. Huh? Annotated bibliography of PhD dissertations submitted in the Department of English. So do you think it's a useless study? Can anybody copy from anywhere? Somebody has to collect, the bibliographic details of each and every PhD thesis, along with the annotation, that will be written by the candidate himself by the help of those PhD theses, and then compile it, and then give different indexes so that one can approach what are the topics that have been studied, who are the poets that have already been studied, okay, and so on, different angles. And once you do it, if the department wants to keep it up to date, then it becomes very easy. Every year they can add. It's important. Similarly, survey method is also important. So, what I was telling you, compilation of bibliography. Yes, I wanted to remind you that before this bibliometric study started, the focus was on the compilation of bibliography. Bibliography, what is important? Period is important. Topic is important. And then methodology is important. Given any topic, like for example, Indian Constitution, okay, period like maybe from 1947 to 2000, whatever has been produced, you compile the bibliography, applying the correct technique of bibliography compilation. But out of this bibliography, what can be done? That you can arrange, the bibliographic entries, whatever the number may be, arrange bibliographic entries in a number of ways. Right? For example, you can arrange them that what are the different forms on which literature has been published on this topic. Meaning thereby, how many books have been published, how many research articles have been published, how many conference proceedings have been published. Like that. Maybe some other forms. So you will come to know which form is the most popular for this topic, Indian Constitution, during this period. And further you can study whether in a given period the most popular form of writing on this topic was book. Later on it changed to article. Later on there may be a number of conferences. Later on there may be a number of research projects, some things like that. Bibliography remained the same. It is the arrangement on the basis of the study you want to make. Here you want to make the study with regard to the form of document that has been covered in the bibliography. Is it right? Similarly, you can also arrange these bibliographic entries on the basis of the language. And you can find out in which language on this topic what publications have come, which is most productive language. You can arrange them, whether in Hindi or in Bengali or in Marathi or in any other language. Okay. Or maybe you can make a chronological study, finding out which is the most productive year. Or arrange them in order of decreasing productivity year. Okay. And you can, chart a graph that the chronological study says like this. From this period to this period, the number increased. From this period to this period, number decreased. And then again picked up. And further you can find out what are the reasons why the literature was in a certain period, was at the peak of publication and followed by certain lean period. What are the sociological or political reasons or economic reasons? It becomes what? The chronological study, which will give rise to a number of more studies to be conducted later. All these things are emanating from where? From bibliography only. Same bibliography. You are making arrangement to study a given aspect of information behavior, like most productive, like the form, which is the most popular form, like the language, which is the most productive language, like the period, which is the most productive period, and everywhere you can find out, you see, the reasons of variation. What is all this? If somebody is studying from a simple bibliography, different studies like form, language, chronology, the articles, the periodicals producing most number of articles on the topic, the most productive authors. There are a number of type of studies that can be conducted. All these things amount to the behavior of information. And from where you have conducted it? From a bibliography only. Is it right? From a bibliography, you are studying the bibliometric aspects of the behavior of information. Am I right? Then you see, when we have found out a number of methods, which some of them I have just named, most productive author, most productive institution, okay, most productive journals or core journals, etc. All this or all these type of studies have led to the formulation of certain laws which are called bibliometric laws. Do you understand? These type of studies which have basically emanated from a bibliographic study. You have studied the behavior of information, and if you have found out consistency in the behavior of information, that has led to formulate a particular law. How a law is formed? When something consistently observed, it becomes a law. When you throw something up and it comes down, then you say that there is a gravitational pull, so it becomes a gravitational law of gravitation. Okay. All other laws, like you see Archimedes' principle. So how the laws are formed? Laws are formed by the consistent behavior of the phenomena. So when you find a consistent behavior in the information which you observe, okay, they have led certain scientists to formulate bibliometric laws. As you are aware that although there are a number of bibliometric laws, but the first and foremost is Bradford's law of scattering. Second is Lotka's law. It refers to some other aspect. And there is one more law. Which one is that? Huh? Zipf's law of word occurrence. Right now. So let us take up Bradford's law with the background which we have generated so far. The law is attached to the word scattering. In the literature of bibliometrics, you will come across two different words. One is the phenomena of scattering and the phenomena of seepage. Phenomena of scattering and seepage. Okay. Phenomena of we will have to distinguish between the two. We will have to distinguish between the two. Scattering and seepage. You see, word scattering is quite clear. When something gets scattered, like our students of MLISC, if they get scattered among the other students of the university or of the faculty of social sciences, they will say that they have been scattered. Generally it means. But in the phenomena of scattering of literature, the term has a bit different connotation. Like that if on a particular topic, if the information pertaining to that topic gets scattered in related journals, these are all related to the field of study, related journals. Then this is the phenomenon of scattering. For example, if I say that the topic is faceted classification. To look for the literature on faceted classification, naturally, I will look into the journals of library and information science. But in library and information science also, I will find that there are certain journals which are more particularly devoted to library classification, where articles on faceted classification do appear more frequently. And of course, because they are the journals on library classification. But that is not the end of it. If I find that the articles on faceted classification also appear in some other journals of library science, not as many articles as in these ones, but they do appear because the subject is the same, the subject is related. This phenomena will be called as scattering, that the articles on the topic faceted classification have got scattered when they are mainly concentrated on a few titles of the journals. They also appear in some other journals of library science as well. And you can arrange them in the order of decreasing productivity. Means those which are producing most number of articles come in first, then lesser number of articles, then still lesser number of articles, then still lesser number of articles, and so on. you can say that the focus on the subject faceted classification is mostly concentrated in the articles published in these core journals. And as you move through this list of journals, you will find this focus gets lesser and lesser and lesser and lesser. Okay? Like it will give a shape of a cone. Most number of articles. Okay? There may be few journals. Then lesser articles. Then still lesser articles. Then still lesser articles. Then you come down to zero. What can you say? You can say that this is the core area. These are the core journals which are mostly devoted to the subject faceted classification. But these are the journals which are not particularly devoted to classification or faceted classification for that matter, but because they belong to library science, okay, some articles on classification do appear in one form or the other. We will say that the information has got scattered. This is called scattering. Do you understand? Now, as compared to this, if suppose there is an article, software development for faceted classification. Which appears in any journal of computer science or computer engineering. These journals are not the journals belonging to the subject library science. These journals are the journals of some other subjects. But still, something related with the topic of research appears in these journals, but very rarely. Very sparingly, very seldom they appear. Okay? Very seldom they appear. Very seldom they appear. Okay? So what will happen? We will call this phenomenon as seepage of information. So that is the difference if the information appears in an unrelated journal, the relevant information appears in unrelated journal, then it is seepage, and if the information appears sparingly in the related journals, then it is called scattering, as it has been shown. You know that Bradford law of scattering, it was given by whom? S.C. Bradford. Samuel Clement Bradford in 1948, I think so. In 1948, am I right?
Yes.
Yes. Yes. And Bradford was a keeper of Science Museum, London. I told you that libraries used to be the part of museum. Even now, even in Delhi, you will find that libraries are the part of the museum. So where he was working as the keeper of Science Museum, London, he came across with two bibliographies. One bibliography was on applied geophysics, and it covered the literature from 1928 to 31. Similarly, there was another bibliography on lubrication, and it consists of 1931 to 32 probably?
33.
31 to 32, may check, 2 years or 3 years. But that is not the issue. When he was working in the library, he came across with two bibliographies. One on applied geophysics, another on lubrication. And this is the period covered under the literature. Is it right?
Yes.
Okay. Now you see that what did he do? He picked up the titles of periodicals. He studied both the bibliographies separately. On one side, title of periodical. On the other side, number of articles published. You can well imagine that on any topic like this, there will be a number of periodicals in which articles have been published. Some of the periodicals will be publishing more articles, some of the periodicals will be publishing less articles under this period. Right? What did he do? That those periodicals, suppose X periodical produced most number of articles, most number of articles he produced. The journal produced most number of articles that he observed. X periodical. And he arranged them in the order of decreasing productivity. If this title produced, say, 50 articles, maybe the Y periodical produced 40 and Z periodical, maybe it produced 20. So this is decreasing productivity. In the same way, he arranged the titles of the journals on the topic lubrication. He arranged them in the same way. Titles of the journal on this one, lubrication. What did he study? As he prepared this list, he prepared another list. And he tried to find out that what are the most productive journals. For example, he found that maybe there are 5 periodicals which are most productive. For example, he found that 5 periodicals produced, say, 50 articles. Right? 5 periodicals, suppose, produced 50 articles in this period. But if he is looking for 50 articles again, then they are not confined to 5 periodicals, but they are confined to far more number of periodicals. Maybe the number of periodicals is 25 periodicals. Alright? Okay? Then further, if you want to search for more 50 articles, then they are not confined to these 25 or only 25. He will have to look further for maybe 625 periodicals. Is it clear? Is it clear? What is this? This is the core area. These are the core journals, which are the most productive journals on the topic, giving most number of articles. But if for the same number of articles you are going through the list, then you will find for the same number of articles you have to consult 25 periodicals, which is 5 times of this. And when you further try to find out how many periodicals will further carry 50 articles, then it becomes 625, means 5 times of this. Is it so? So he was able to observe a particular behavior of information with regard to the phenomena of scattering. Do you understand? And that gave him what was called as Bradford's law of scattering. What is the law? Law is simple on this basis. If the journals are arranged in the order of decreasing productivity, means those giving most number of articles coming first and those giving lesser number of articles listed later, then one can recognize a few zones. The first zone being the core zone, which is the most productive, which is also called as nucleus. Then the other zone, which carries the same number of articles, will have a far large number of periodicals. Then the third zone again, for the same number of articles, will still have far larger number of periodical titles. Do you understand? That gave Bradford to formulate his own law of scattering. He says that if these 3 zones are shown like this being the nucleus, being the core zone, this is zone 1, this is zone 2. If there are any number of periodicals in the core zone, okay, number of periodicals in the core zone, a given number of periodical in the core zone, right? And number of articles produced by these, they are constant in each zone. Then there is relationship between the number of periodicals appearing in this zone, and in this zone. And that is given as 1 is to A square, or 1 is to n square. This is called Bradford's equation. Okay, I would like to show you something which a lot of students have done. Some of them have taken out a few studies, conducted very good studies. ये इसको लगा सकते हैं? This table, हाँ? No?
आ जाएगी सर
कैसे?
विजुअलाइजर से।
हाँ, विजुअलाइजर से लगाइए। तो इसको आप you can start, हाँ?
जी।
One of my student has conducted bibliometric study on the literature of cardiovascular diseases. And what did he do? As I told you just now, he also arranged the journals according to their decreasing productivity. You can see in the first column, after serial number, there are a number of journals. Then they have given cumulation of journals. The number goes on adding. Then the number of items means the number of articles which have been published. So, these journals, which are about, how many? Number of journals are 718. He divided into 3 zones. The first zone consists of 11 journals and it carries about 1,345 articles. 11 journals, only 11 journals in the whole 718 periodicals, 11 journals are carrying this much number of articles. Then when he looked for almost this much number of articles that is here, he had to go through about 83 journals. Okay. Then further almost this much number of articles if he has to go through, that is about 1325. In all he has to consult 718 journals titles. You can well imagine that only 11 journals are carrying maximum number of articles. Naturally they form the nucleus. They form a core zone of the literature on this topic. Core zone, the nucleus. Then the number of articles remain constant, almost constant. Okay, it's a statistical study. 1,345, not much difference. 1,332. 1,325, hardly 5757. It means this figure is constant, right? But what is increasing is the number of periodicals. From 11, it is how much? 83. And for the same number, the total goes to 780. So you can write 3 things. One is number of journals, another is number of items, and write just 3 lines. Here 11 and 1,345. Below down you can write 83 and 1,333. Below down you can write 718 and the number of articles is 1,325. Then on the left side, the figure is constant. Then try to find out the relationship between 11, 83 and 718. That we will try to work out. Okay? इसको बंद करिए, इसको ऑफ करिए. How the Bradford's table was done. according to the decreasing productivity of the journals. Okay? What you have noted? You have noted zone 0 or zone 1, you can say. Zone 0, that is nucleus. In which there are 11 titles, journals titles. Okay? And the articles are items which they carried. What is the number? What is the number? 135. 45. 45. एक आदमी बोला करें. 1345. Then, in the first zone or zone after nuclear zone, how many journals? 83 journals. And carrying how many number of articles? 1332. Then zone 2. How many titles? 718. Carrying how many articles? 1325. It means that the number of articles appearing in the 3 zones is constant. In a statistical pure value, it is constant. So here we have a figure consisting of 11 ratio 83 and is to 718. What they are? Number of journals in nucleus, number of journals in the first zone, number of journals in the second. If 11 is a multiple of 1 in the nuclear zone, okay, then here 8 will be multiple of 11. 88. Okay. And if 8 is a multiple here, then 8 into 8 into 11 will be how much? 704 probably?
Yes.
Will be how much?
704.
704. So this becomes 704, this becomes 88, this becomes 11. In this equation, 11 is common, appears as a multiple of different figures. So take out 11 and then you will find it will be 1 into 8 into 8 into 8. 1 ratio 8 ratio 8 into 8, because take out 11 which is common. Okay. If 8 is equal to A, then if you replace A, if you replace 8 by A, the equation will be 1 is to A is to A square, which is Bradford's equation. What this equation says? The equation says that if you arrange the journals in the order of decreasing productivity, then the maximum number of articles in the nuclear zone, then for the same number of articles, if you go to the successive zone, it will be in the ratio of 1 is to A square. If the value of A is 8, then it is 8 times of what you have in the nucleus. 8 times into what you have in the nucleus. Or if you go to the third zone, then it will be 8 square of what you have in the nuclear zone. Is that clear or not? So this is called Bedford's law of scattering. This you have to prove. Is it right? Any question? Any question? Let me know. Yes. If you have any question, let me know. Then maybe on the next turn we will take up what is the relationship of Bedford's equation to the graph, which is a representation of bibliometric law, Bedford's law. And what mistake Bedford committed and how that mistake was rectified by the later researchers, that we are going to see. And lastly, we will see the application of Bedford's law in library, different types of libraries, special library or in any other type of library. Okay, so we finished.